Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Fire Up. My name is Scott Morgan, Motor City Madmouth. Have a great show tonight. Enjoy the crew. And before we get into that crew, I want to talk about we have a wide range of topics we're going to talk about from baseball, including some of my NASCAR exploits over the weekend at Homestead-Miami Speedway. Had a really wonderful time working with my pal Russell Branham, and I'm looking forward to working on more projects with my man Russ. I'll divulge them at a later date, and I'll get into some basic race information, although my crew won't have to comment on it. It's just something I want to bring out here as well. With that said, I'll introduce my crew to you. Greg Fuchs. Welcome back, Greg.
Good evening, everybody. Glad to be here.
And a pleasant surprise to the crew tonight, my boy, Eric Concrete Dump Cats.
Good to be here.
Yeah, Eric's my adopted son. Anytime I can bring my boy on, I'm proud as heck to do it. So, and my favorite whipping boy, Madman Mancini. Welcome back, Marco.
Always a pleasure to be on the most watched and most seen show across the country on Monday nights.
Yeah, we're tearing it up, aren't we, Mark?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
more ways than one.
Yeah, well, we'll make Greg feel a little bit closer to home with the first topic. The Steelers lose to the Dolphins 16-10. At least those Dolphins didn't have a quarterback that got knocked out. They were able to see the game. So, Greg, just give me your quick take on the Steelers and the Dolphins. I know Mancini's depressed because he's a Pittsburgh guy, which is why I like to bring on topics that get under Mark's skin. No, I won't talk about Pirates tonight, but we'll talk about the Steelers. At least make him feel somewhat at home and the quarterback controversy that should be. I'll say this about that. Mitch Trubisky should have played the entire year, and I think they moved too swiftly with Kenny Pickett. I really do. That's a personal opinion. Greg, take it away. Talk about the Dolphins' 16-10 win over Pittsburgh.
Yeah. One of my favorite sports quotes is never apologize for a win, and that applies to last night's game. Wasn't an exciting game, wasn't a well-played game, but they won, and that's all that really matters. Why'd they win? Turnovers was the big one. Intercepted Pickett 3 times, and Tua easily could have been intercepted 3 times, but the Steelers defensive backs decided not to catch any of them. And the other thing, you really got to give the Dolphins defense, especially the secondary, a lot of credit because they were missing at the start of the game 4 of their 5 top cornerbacks, and then in the third quarter they lost their starting safety, Brandon Jones. And they held the Steelers to 10 points. The thing that concerns me about the Dolphins, they started out like a house of fire on offense, but then they got into that habit they've had too often this year. They're moving the ball, but they can't put the ball in the end zone. They had the ball in Pittsburgh territory, I think 5 times last night, settled for field goals 3 times, got stopped on downs the 4th time. And they were fortunate to win last night with 16 points. You're not going to win a whole lot of games scoring 16 points. So with Waddle and Hill and Mostert, they need to get that ball into the end zone more often. And McDaniel's play calling, I think, could be a little more creative at times.
Well, the only thing I'll say about the Dolphins and the Steelers is I was at Homestead-Miami Speedway, and I had to navigate when I was going to leave there, so I didn't have to worry about the traffic jam on the turnpike to get home, but I'm not like I didn't know what's going on. I'm on the Dolphins media distribution list and I read up on what took place. So I had a lot of things to make sure I got back home without having to do too much with traffic. So with that said, Eric, give me your take on the Dolphins and the Steelers.
Well, right now the Steelers are kind of a team in transition right now. They obviously they lost, Ben Roethlisberger, and he's been their quarterback for a long, long time. I think playing Kenny Pickett was the right deal because, how much better would they be with Mitch Trubisky? I still think it would be like the same result because, to be honest, Mitch Trubisky just is not that good of a quarterback. And, the Bears were wrong to draft him. You can say what you will about what happened with Deshaun Watson and obviously, Patrick Mahomes, we didn't know he would morph into what he's become. There's some luck there. But the fact of the matter is, how much better would they be? Why not get the rookie some experience? I don't think the guy's clearly not afraid because it's not like he's holding the ball forever and he's scared to throw an interception. He's just a little, right now his decision making's off. I think playing him now is the right way to go because, how much better would they be with Mitch Trubisky? Why waste the time to give Kenny Pickett valuable game reps? And 2, at the time, as well that, Mr. Trubisky just wasn't playing that well. Why not? I think that the Steelers thought that Kenny Pickett gives him a chance to win, a better chance to win, which he does. And why not just throw him in there? And then, he's a pro. He comes from a pro style offense. He's definitely ready made for it. And in Pittsburgh, they essentially ran an NFL offense. So, they weren't going with any of that the spread looks, which is ill prepared, which ill prepares quarterbacks for the NFL. Why not just give Kenny Pickett that shot to see what he has? Because it's not like Kenny Pickett's been awful out there. It's just, the decision making's got to get better, and, he'll learn from it. Pretty much baptism by fire is the best route to go.
Yeah, well, you want to back that up. Troy Aikman definitely got baptized, and we all know
he got killed.
Yeah, he did, didn't he? I mean, I don't know. The only reason why I think that Trubisky would have been a better move is I've always been a firm believer, being in the old school age, that you want to give a quarterback a year to sit and hold the clipboard. But, let's face it, you said it yourself, Eric, that this is a franchise transition. So I can appreciate both points of view. With that said, he should feel very good because he's getting a Pittsburgh subject on here, because he never gets one on here. But we'll let Madman Mancini talk about the Steelers' loss to the Dolphins. I know he didn't want to throw out the Dolphins a win over them. And your take on that situation, Mark?
Well, I think let me just bring the lumber out on this thing. That place looked like Pittsburgh South last night. There was a lot of Steeler fans in the crowd, but,
right.
We can agree to disagree with Eric here. And I agree with you on this, Scott, that I'm a firm believer you hold the clipboard for a year unless it's an injury, then you pencil a dude in. In that situation, I think Trubinsky probably would have pulled that game out and they would have won 17-16. He wasn't worth a damn in Chicago, but he learned a lot under Josh Allen in Buffalo. And then learning in Pittsburgh, I think what happened here is it's not so much a team in transition. It's a team that Mike Tomlin is bending to the Pittsburgh media to some extent, where he's bowing. You got to take a stand. You got to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to do this, and I don't really care if you like it or not. We're going to stick with this guy because he's not the reason they were 1-4 to start the season there. That offensive line was garbage. Right. And, he wasn't the problem. So I don't care who you throw back there. You got to build that offensive line. But going into Miami, if Trubinsky was the quarterback in the last 2 minutes, they would have pulled that game out. And they would have been 3-4 heading into Philadelphia, and had another puncher's chance of knocking an undefeated team off the ranks. But I think Mitch Trubinsky's learned a lot in the NFL. The guy that's a 15-minute car traces, and we don't want to talk about it tonight because I know it's a Miami show, is Trey Lance. That's a guy that was a wasted draft pick.
Well, you know what? I don't disagree with that at all. Mark, you're right. Even though, I agree. I think Trey Lance, to me, had such a small sample size over, I believe it was North Dakota State, right? So, and now you're picking him with a high pick. Like, Mark, I definitely am with you all the way on that. I do.
I got to agree with Eric on the Kenny Pickett thing. I think there's no substitute for the real game experience. And the Steelers and Pickett will be much better off come next year's training camp.
Listen, I don't think there's a wrong answer to anything that what we're saying. We all have points of view is what I think. And Eric's right. Makes a lot of sense. So do you, Greg. All right, Mark.
Well, here's the thing with Eric and now Greg on this. If you throw a rookie in the mix of this thing, he's got 4 games under his belt. You can't expect him to be a Dan Marino or Big Ben Roethlisberger. No. He's going to take his lumps. And all you're looking at is the potential of the talent, maybe a little bit better than Trubinsky. But he clearly blew that game in the last minute, overthrowing. He should have ran the 20 yards.
Nope. I mean, nobody thought Kenny Pickett would be the next Big Ben or Dan Marino from day one. It's just, those guys only come around once, and they, nobody expected Kenny Pickett to be that guy, or, they just, obviously the the Rooney family is the best at this. They know that it takes time to build something special. So that, Big Ben obviously had his moments with Bill Cowher. I do know that. And I know that, Kenny Pickett, I think, is benefiting from this because he at least gets the speed of the game. Because when you throw a guy in there just, right away, the ball, those guys are coming. This isn't the University of Miami or Duke University running at you. These guys in the NFL, these guys fly. And I think Pickett, Pickett's in, I think he's right where he needs to be. Yeah, his decision making needs to be a lot better. But again, nobody's going to be Big Ben. I mean, Big Ben only happens once. Dan Marino once, and whoever else you want to name. Nope. How much better would the Steelers be with Mitch Trubisky than Kenny Pickett? I don't think they'd be that much better. And to be truthful, everybody was raving about, especially in Chicago, because I had to deal with Mitch Trubisky for a while. He, to be truthful, he really is not that. He was never that great of a quarterback. And to be truthful, I never thought he was that good. He didn't win the starting job at North Carolina the first time around. He got it his senior year just because he was the only guy who had experience. And, but he was never going to be that guy. And matter of fact, the Steelers, I think, are better off with Pickett than they are with Trubisky, because there's a lot of ball games. I mean, Kenny Pickett's at least had them in some ball games. They just haven't been able to cash in. And part of that, I think, is on Matt Canada, which Matt Canada needs to drum up some better schemes, which is something he struggled with as of late. And he's just not, right now Pickett's just going through the rookie woes. Would you rather have that now when the Steelers aren't expected to make the playoffs, when they're kind of in a team caught in the middle right now? Or would you rather bring him in the second year where the pieces are hopefully going to be in place for them, and then have him struggle now?
Yeah, and Pickett's not your typical rookie. He's 24 years old, was a 4-year starter in college. He's got plenty of experience.
Well, and not only that, comparing Mitch Trubisky in Chicago, they've changed quarterbacks in Chicago since, Jim McMahon's there, then we've changed underwear. I mean, come on. I mean, when you look at the quarterbacks in Chicago, you can't really compare the quarterbacks in Chicago to Pittsburgh's and some of these other cities where they develop the guys and let them be themselves. Mm-hmm. You saw Mitch Trubisky had a pretty darn good year in Buffalo, backing up Josh Allen. He goes to Pittsburgh. He's given the starting role. He didn't lose that. I mean, an injury comes out, then I can see the change. But, let Pickett come in latter part of the year when they got something secured. Let him take his lumps then. You don't stand there and throw these guys in. If you've looked at quarterbacks over the years, you see John Elway. He carried a clipboard for a year. The Dan Marinos. You don't throw these guys in unless it's an injury.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing, though, with Pittsburgh. Before we start racking on Chicago, after Terry Bradshaw, there was a laundry line of quarterbacks there. It's not like they had anybody that great up until Ben Roethlisberger. The only thing Pittsburgh had up to that point was maybe an Neil O'Donnell, which essentially what he amounts to now is a game manager quarterback, and maybe prior to that, Tommy Maddox, who same deal, who was, to be truthful, not much better than Neil O'Donnell. That's the best that Pittsburgh had after Terry Bradshaw. So clearly Pittsburgh had their own issues, because for the longest time it was pound the ball with either Barry Foster, Jerome Bettis, or any another, or even Bam Morris prior to him running into some trouble. So really Pittsburgh didn't really have that great of quarterbacks after Terry Bradshaw either.
Well,
No, I
they
gotta
won
tell you one
6
thing.
titles.
Let me tell you something. I'm watching this, and I guarantee you one thing, folks. I'm not losing my voice over this broadcast. I'm enjoying the banter back and forth between the kid and the madman. I mean, I don't care what it is.
Well, I'm
And
just
I'll tell you
laying
one
it out.
thing.
I'm just saying they have 6 titles. When was the last time the Chicago Bears have been relevant? And that's when Rex Grossman took them to a Super Bowl. They haven't been relevant since. They haven't had a coach there since Ditka.
Yeah, but you know what, Mark? Hold on.
Wait a minute.
Hold on. Okay. We know the Bears, first of all, don't spend a lot of money anyway. So let's face the reality. Let Allen Robinson walk, and now they need a receiver. I mean, the list goes on and on. And I'm not going to let the show, Mark, get out of control over a Pittsburgh subject. When I was
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the division has been dominated by Minnesota and Green Bay for the last decade.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Mark, Aaron Rodgers held a clipboard for a while too. So you're talking about a guy that understands the value of holding a clipboard. But in this day and age, okay, yeah, did the Pittsburgh media force Tomlin to cave a little bit. Probably fans. I don't value fans anyways. They're entitled to their opinion. They're going to pay what they want to go to these games. But the reality of the situation is until you've actually covered teams and you've spoken to coaches, personnel people, and you get philosophical kind of stuff, then you really understand the inner dynamics. The one thing that we can't forget before we move on to the next subject is the fact that this is virgin territory for Mike Tomlin, that he may have a losing season. And this is the first time he's going to be faced with some major adversity below the 500 mark. So he has to kind of acclimate to the fact that I've had it good for a while, got a Super Bowl title, and it's all been nice. But you know what? We're moving on, and I got to figure out how to get this thing solved so the Steelers don't become as inept as the Pittsburgh Pirates. And I'm leaving it on that note. All right, Mark, no comment. They're not going to give you a chance to do it. I do want to comment a little bit about NASCAR. Kyle Larson won at Homestead Speedway yesterday. And, he ended up leading 199 of 267 laps, his third win of the year. Last year's Cup champion was eliminated earlier in this year's playoffs. Folks, I can tell you right now, NASCAR is a sport I always really liked. I call it my passion sport. Russell Branham took care of me in Talladega and Homestead, and he allowed me to drive a vehicle behind the racetrack. And Russell is in the Motor City Mad Mouth Hall of Fame, and I'm going to be bringing him on a show. He mentioned to me yesterday in Miami he wants to come on. I'm going to bring him on there. So, and I had Eric Almirola on the network earlier in the week. I wanted to thank the people down at Homestead, led by Russell. A very big thank you for having Candy Abley and I out there as we did in Talladega. I'm looking forward to working with him on future projects. Nobody has to comment it. Just want to get it out there. So with that said, okay, let's turn our attention to baseball. As expected, the Astros completed their road to the World Series with a 4-0 sweep over the Yankees. The key names here: Dusty Baker, Aaron Judge, Aaron Boone. Dusty Baker, the only thing left for Dusty is win a world championship. He's done it all. Aaron Judge's going to make a lot of money. Aaron Boone, we don't know how long he'll be there. Enter Don Mattingly, that dynamic as well. Now, I know that Eric is a passionate Yankees guy. We will talk a little bit about the Yankees a little bit. Eric, first of all, do you want to talk more about the Astros at the moment, or do you want to direct your energy toward the Yankees, and then we'll follow suit with where you're going to go with this?
I'd rather talk about the Yankees. The Astros make my blood boil.
Okay. So go ahead.
Well, I mean, it's a very precarious offseason the Yankees are entering into. I know that Chapman and Britton are coming off the books, and so that's going to leave them some money to play with. I know Rizzo's got a player option, which he's more than likely going to opt out, considering he's been the model of consistency, unless he wants to really stay in New York, which I know the Yankees would be glad to have him. I know that that's something that's being overshadowed by the whole Aaron Judge situation. I think Boone signed a 3-year extension in the 2021 off season, so he's still got some time on that contract. Not sure what they're gonna do yet, but odds are Brian Cashman, love him or hate him, he's probably going to be back. I mean, if let's just say the Yankees don't offer him a contract, 29 other teams would love to hire a guy who's won multiple World Series rings, and he's proven he can do it. But the Yankees are entering a very precarious offseason. And it's something that's going to be really monitor, because there's a lot of moving pieces there.
Okay. Well, Greg, so you want to talk about the Astros, or you want to talk about the Yankees, or both?
I'll do both, but I'll start with the Yankees as a big-time New York Yankee hater.
Wow.
It was nice to see him lose. The Yankees, they need to do something different. They got too many older players who get injured. And the first thing they have to do, I don't care what it costs, they have the money. They have to sign Aaron Judge. All right. Now, if he doesn't want to play in New York City for some reason, I mean, there's not much they can do about that. But he was that team's offense this year. I mean, the Yankees' offense struggled big time in the playoffs. And you just look at the guys like Josh Donaldson, his days are best days are way behind him. But they still have good starting pitching. I mean, Cortez and Cole, their bullpen got decimated by injuries this year, so you have to assume that's going to be a lot better next year. So the Yankees can spend whatever they want, but they need to find some younger, more athletic players, in my opinion. As for the Astros, and you got to give them credit. What is this? The fourth or I forgot. I heard it last night and I forgot it. Fourth or fifth year in the last 6 years they've been in the World Series. Am I right there?
Yep.
But I mean, they don't have. When you look at the everyday lineup, it's not as talented as it used to be when they had Correa and Springer and all those guys there. But they just seem to get the hits at the right time, and I love their pitching staff. I mean, Verlander, McCullers, and that kid Valdez. I mean, I just think that guy's a stud. He reminds me of Kershaw with that big left-hand curveball. And then they got those guys who close out games for them. It sounds like I'm going to say Houston's going to win this World Series easily. I think this is going to be a great World Series. Astros are one of those. I mean, Phillies are one of those wild card teams. They're healthy. They're hot. They just seem like a team of destiny, sort of like the Washington Nationals were a few years ago. They're probably hitting better than any other team in the playoffs. I don't think their pitching is going to match up with Houston, but we'll see.
I mean, I kind of disagree with that, especially with them hitting wise. Number one, their bottom of the lineup became huge for them. Something that the Astros fans like to rank on all year. Obviously, Gurriel is a proven postseason performer. And at shortstop, replacing Carlos Correa was Jeremy Pena, who's probably more than likely going to win AL Rookie of the Year, who was getting the big hits for him. So there's still plenty of talent in the cupboard. And also they find something that was their Achilles heel for a lot of the time was their bullpen. But man, they managed to figure that out, and obviously their starting staff is second to none. So they still have a lot of talent on that team, and I think it's still just as good as it was when they first started making noise a bit with an asterisk.
Yeah, they seem to come up with the big hits. Pena had the 3-run homer yesterday, and Bregman had the 3-run homer the game before. I mean, they just when they need a hit, they seem to get it.
And
Eric, hold on one second. Let me get this out there. Subscribe to the South Florida Tribune on our YouTube channel or visit www.southfloridatribune.com and the advertise call 954-304-4941. The audio portion of the show can be heard on iHeartRadio, Google, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Also, if you have a hard time finding it through our website, just go to youtube.com, look for South Florida Tribune, and please hit subscribe. Then you'll get all the notifications when we do things on the road as well as these streams. Okay, Eric, just want to get that out there. So continue with your thought.
And yes, for probably the second half of the year, Aaron Judge was a big part of their offense, but you're forgetting the fact that this team also had Anthony Rizzo, who missed a lot of time, but still tied his career high for home runs. And then also you also forget about the fact they still had Giancarlo Stanton, which yes, he missed a great amount of time, but still had himself a very productive year. Was an all-star. And then also if he would have stayed healthy, DJ LeMahieu was just doing great things. You bat him anywhere, he's going to be productive. And also, don't forget that this team acquired Andrew Benintendi, who was starting to really put something special together before he injured his wrist. The lineup too was quite banged up, and I think also not having that consistent lineup for the second half of the year, and also not having the quote unquote full-time closer is what really hurt them, because I really don't think a bullpen by committee can do it. I mean, obviously the Rays will disagree with me, but I still don't think it's something that can work long term, and that's something that the Yankees are going to have to look into in the offseason. I think Scott Effross, had he stayed healthy, I think he would have been the closer, and I think he can be a closer. But that still remains to be seen as he's about to go under the knife.
All right, so let's go to the chat room. Ralph Williams says in 2 years for the Steelers, they'll get better when Tomlin's contract runs out. I'm not going to touch that one. I like Mike Tomlin. But these are questions that we're going to direct, Mark, hold on, towards Eric, coming from Will Vogel, okay? So you're going to have a chance to comment on what Will. Eric, obviously, Will's pulling for the Yankees, and he's a Yankees fan too, but he says get rid of IKF, Chapman, Donaldson, in my opinion. So he would love you, Eric, to comment on what he just said, and then go from there. And then he also talked about the fact that Bader played well. All right, Eric, the floor is yours on what Will Vogel is. We'll look at the chat room, and then you can go out there and go from there.
Well, Aroldis Chapman's already on the way out. All right, he decides to he just because his roster spot wasn't necessarily guaranteed at that point, he decides to go and say, "Forget it, my season's over," and fly down to Miami without any without any excuse. And then whatever excuse he gave clearly wasn't good enough, which I wouldn't be surprised if it was something stupid. His contract's up at the end of the year. His best days are behind him, and he'll be on the way out for sure. IKF, I would like to. I mean, good contact guy, but no pop. I really would like for them to put Peraza in there because the guy's proven he can be a stud at the position. And I think personally a Gold Glove is in his future. So, but I'm not sure what they're going to do with IKF because I'm sure they can probably find a spot for him where he plays like, I don't know, the finale of a series or maybe the second game of a series. I'm sure there's still a spot for him because there were times because his speed still is something to keep in mind. Yeah, he's a poor fielder at shortstop, but the Yankees were playing him out of position for much of the year. And then as far as Hicks goes, I'm not sure what planet he was on for much of the year because it certainly wasn't Earth. Because he certainly seemed lost up there. Yeah, he had moments, but obviously the Yankees have their center fielder in Harrison Bader, which Harrison Bader people seem to forget the Yankees didn't have him for a lot of the year because they knew Herman and Severino were coming back, which made Jordan Montgomery expendable, and they traded him to the National League. Yeah, he may have been on fire in the National League, but keep in mind, folks, he's pitching in the National League, where especially in the NL Central, where they couldn't even hit a barn door, and which with the exception of the Cardinals, which they were essentially they were to hitting or they were to hitting this season as the Brewers were to pitching about a year ago, but obviously Harrison Bader, he was a big part of that. He hit I think 4 home runs in the postseason, which he was a big part of the reason why the Yankees were able to go as far as they were. And he's clearly their starting center fielder. So, the Bronxville Bomber I am definitely looking forward to him having a full year. As far as Donaldson goes, man, he has just passed his prime. The Yankees got him a year too late. His, the bat speed's not there anymore. The postseason, he looked like a lost goose out there. And personally, he tries to be that guy, the chirper like he always is, but man, he just doesn't have the bat anymore to back it up. I mean, it's just what happens. The guy's in his late 30s. They get old. And as far as
he's still got a year to go on his contract, I want to say.
Yeah, which the Yankees decided to take that on so they could get rid of Gary Sanchez. And so that was the deal there.
Well, Mark's chomping at the bit to get in here. You're very
well. I've been warmed up with throwing these 105-mile-an-hour fastballs in the bullpen, and the bullpen phone hasn't been working properly. I'm not a fan of New York. I just could care less if the Statue of Liberty fell in the Atlantic, and I'm not a fan of LA, the city where I live, and that Hollywood sign can fall in the Pacific. I will tell you, if you want to turn those two morbid franchises around, because I really don't give a damn about the regular season, hire a guy that's turned 4 franchises around, Dave Dombrowski. Give him the boatload of cash. He'll turn your organizations around. As far as Aaron Judge, he ain't coming to New York, man. I'm calling my shot right here on this show. He's going to San Francisco or San Diego. That's where he's going. As far as the Astros, all I keep hearing is the same talk with the New England Patriots. Blah, blah, blah. They cheat. They bang trash cans. They do this and they do that. They've lost Cole. They've lost Springer. They've lost Correa. They still win 6 straight American League Championship Series, 4 to 6 World Series. I don't know if they're going to win it, but that team in Philly's playing some good baseball. It's going to be an interesting series. I do radio in Philly. I'm going to stick with the Phillies in 6.
That's fine. All right. So, Mark, with that said, Dusty Baker to me is probably a person that's hard to root against, and he's done it the right way in Houston. He really has. He took a situation where he literally walked into a hornet's nest and stabilized it and settled down. So, we'll get to the World Series prediction in a moment because I know everybody has one. But how do you root against Dusty Baker? I mean, I'd like to see him do well. Of course, Justin Verlander, why not win another championship anyhow? Aaron Judge is an interesting thought, though, Mark, okay? I've heard about San Francisco being a possible landing spot. Padres are not afraid to spend money either. They're really not. Any other place, I would find it hard to believe the Judge would go to the Mets. I'm not going to go there. Aaron Boone, I think if you're going to make a change, Don Mattingly is the guy that should be there.
Yep.
That's my personal opinion. All right, Mark, go ahead.
Well, the rumor. Oh, I'm sorry, Greg. The rumor has it that the Padres can bring in a guy like Judge. They still got 2 years with Soto to let him play his thing out. They get Fernando Tatis. They kind of tweak the pitching a little. Get, maybe another pitcher in there, blow one out in Clevenger. So this team's going to be dangerous. And if you get Aaron Judge in there, watch out. As far as Dombrowski, 4 teams, my friend, you can count them. One in your backyard, Miami, Detroit, Boston, and Philly. This guy gets in an organization, he turns them around. And you look at New York and you look at LA, these guys have been stealing money in Friedman and Cashman. They're afraid to spend it on the right people. Get a guy like Dombrowski, he'll turn your teams around.
Well, Mark, let me point this out about Dave Dombrowski, and I'm glad you brought it up. Okay. He's good for an organization that has a plethora of prospects. When the cupboard is dry, then it's another story. I'm not saying that he's not a successful executive, because obviously you already stated why he is. Gave 4 reasons why. Unless this guy's got a bank account where they can bring in free agents, and just because you have a high payroll doesn't mean you're going to win it all. You need any example of that? What about the Yankees and Dodgers? They're not in the World Series. So, that's all well and good, but when you don't have a lot of prospects, he traded a lot of the Tigers prospects away to try to win quicker. And, it's one of those things where there's that fine line. I remember hold on, Mark. Okay, when I remember George Steinbrenner used to build strong farm systems. He had tons of coaches down there where when I covered the Florida State League back in the day in the 80s, Steinbrenner made sure he had a lot of coaches and whatnot way ahead of everybody else and spent a lot of money to develop these guys where they were worthwhile assets. But Dombrowski, to me, is certainly a good story, and we all know how the Phillies, we're going to get to them in a moment. Okay, but I like what the San Diego Padres are doing. The San Diego Padres turned the corner. And don't forget the fact that Josh Hader finally got it turned around a little bit toward the very, very end, and a trade that I think probably took the wind out of the sails for the Milwaukee Brewers and they've admitted that too, that maybe that wasn't the right trade to be made at the time, knowing they had club control of that. So the Padres, to me, aren't afraid to spend money. I know you are partial toward the Padres, Mark. If I can't read your social media posts, then I need another set of glasses, because I know I know your Facebook rants are what they are. You try to rant a little on Facebook with the followers you do have, but I know you're boisterous on Facebook. We know that you definitely like the Padres. And, I've never heard the line that you like to put the Statue of Liberty into a body of water. That might be a different one. So, I don't think our New York listeners particularly care about you in that sense, because Madman Mancini, you never know how many death threats you're going to get. But, but hey, you know what, though? You have Ralph Williams. He could probably protect you from any death
bodyguard of the Berg.
I'd pay money for you to go in the middle of Times Square and say that.
Yeah, I would too.
Well, but the thing is, Eric, maybe you're just built for the regular season. I mean, have you ever thought of that? I mean,
I agree.
When you look at these two organizations, it was almost hand in hand how they blew these divisions out in June, and then all of a sudden you shot your wad and you had nothing to go in October. And this is a consistent pattern of these two teams. This is big market baseball at its best. And you're not built to play in October. Facts, lay the facts out where they are. You're just not built to play in October.
Well, not only that, I always like to joke around with Pedro Martinez that when the Yankees had domination, the Yankees are my daddy. Well, if you want to trademark anything, Pedro, you can always talk about the daddy comments all you want. And now the Houston Astros are the Yankees' daddy. And Eric Katz is my son, so I'm okay with that.
Well, here's the thing with yes, I do agree with your comment on being built for the regular season. At the moment, it seems like the Yankees are, but yes, that part, that all of that is true, especially as of late. But the thing about San Diego is, how do you expect them to spend all that money on Judge? Because they got a lot of money going. They got a lot of money, and where would you actually put him? Because Fernando Tatis Jr. is going to come back, and he's probably not going back to shortstop because Ha-Seong Kim has proven to be the better of the two defensively, and he also has some pop in his bat. So so that probably means Tatis Jr. is probably roaming somewhere in the outfield. Now, as far as Judge goes, they obviously that lineup, even without Judge is still built to bash. So, but where San Diego only has so much money to go around.
Well, the problem is
that's true, Eric, and they could get hit with the luxury tax. They don't have anything to show for it as well. So
they're not LA or the Yankees where they have a nice prestigious television deal that will bail them out of that, particularly the Dodgers, who will spend so much money against the luxury tax they don't care if they reach the maximum tier of spending. But
so let me ask you, Eric. What have they won in 4 decades? I'm not counting 60 games in 2020. What have they won since 1988? And how old were you?
The Yankees?
How old? The Dodgers. What have the Dodgers won? They haven't won a World Series playing 162 games in almost 4 decades.
Trust me, there is no love lost between myself and the Los Angeles Dodgers. To be truthful, I cannot stand them. I'm just going
what
by.
What have you won since 2009 or 10 or 8?
You want 2009? Well, what want me to hit you in a sore spot? What have the Pittsburgh Pirates done the past few years?
But they're a small market team.
So you're going to make that excuse? They're a small market team.
We're playing on house money. We're not supposed to do anything year in and year out. And the Padres could be thrown in that category too. They just inherited a lump sum of money from a dead uncle. Now they're spending it, but they're spending it in the right way and frame of mind to contend. And they got a good GM in there, and AJ Preller, who's a riverboat gambler. And before that, it was Theo Epstein.
I wouldn't call losing in the ALCS to the Phillies, who fired their manager mid-year. Otherwise, their team wouldn't even be in the playoffs.
How different are you than me and the Pittsburgh Pirates? You just prolonged the inevitable. You went a little further than I did, but you're not winning anything either.
Well, I at least have an opportunity to go somewhere.
Yeah. One thing great about baseball playoffs is, unlike the NBA and the NFL, where the best team generally wins, in baseball, if you make the playoffs, anything can happen.
Yeah.
You get hot, you got a couple of good starters or a strong bullpen. You never know what can happen. So the Yankees are there virtually every single year. They just haven't won the World Series. It's hard to win a championship.
Greg, if you win a division title in 9 out of 10 years, you got more than a puncher's chance to get to the World Series and win it.
Well, we've seen the wild card teams make noise. Take a look at the Phillies.
Well, that's why
let me finish, Mancini. You've had your turn. Here's the thing. Unlike your team, the Yankees at least have a chance to win it every single year. They been able to get it done? No. But this isn't the first time the Yankees have had a title drought. As annoying it may be, this isn't the longest time they've had a title drought. They've had longer droughts than this. But as far as that goes, and don't give me the small market thing, because Oakland for a little while seemingly was in the playoffs every single year at one point without spending money. And look at the Rays. The Rays you can never count out because they come out and put together some quality ball teams, no matter how much I despise them. So don't give me that don't give me that part. Let me finish, Mancini. You've had your turn. You have the Rays are just, take the Rays for example, just like the Pirates. Don't spend a lot of money. The Pirates, I'd argue, say they have more money because the people of Pittsburgh, you actually got yourself a nice ballpark on the river right there downtown Pittsburgh. But the thing, so every team, no matter what the market is, whoever has the X amount of wins, clinches a wild card or clinches a division. Hell, the Rays have clinched a division, for crying out loud. They actually, prior to the Yankees doing it, they took care of it 2 years in a row. Yes, it wasn't a legitimate year, but they made it to a World Series. Something Pittsburgh your sorry Pirates franchise can't say they've done in recent years. Unless you count going to the wild card round of the playoffs and getting absolutely bounced into the Allegheny River.
Well, don't make excuse for Yankee fans because they're not content winning division flags and having club records with home runs.
At least I have expectations.
But that might be your expectations. That's not the expectation of a Yankee fan.
My
Yankee fan wants the World Series every year, year in and year out, and you're not getting it again this year. So what's that? 12 years running? I've seen this dog and pony show.
You sound like a poor market franchise that's gotten so over screaming and yelling at your buddy Bob to finally do something that you find something else to make fun of. That has to be the most.
Well, no, it's a small. I understand. Let me city.
Now
I understand it.
Yo, Mark, let me finish.
I keep giving you the floor.
You seemingly go on to the floor when I have something to say. Here's the deal. I'm not content with it either. I'm really not. The Yankee fans are definitely not content with it. My expectations, first off, how dare you assume that my expectations are a division title? They're not.
Well, you just
you said I have the floor. Now let me have it. No, but here's the thing. Yes, I want a World Series ring just as bad as everyone else. I'm just stating the fact that I at least have a chance to win it, like anyone else. They made it to the ALCS. My team at least has made it that far. And as far as the Pirates go, you said small market franchise earlier. Look at the Rays. The Rays have done some damage in October in the past, so it looks like you have some catching up to do while your team free falls into the Allegheny River if it doesn't already.
Eric, I love you, man, but just tell me you want to be a bridesmaid. You tell me you got a chance. Who cares about a chance? Win the damn trophy. That's all.
I would love to win the.
That's all that matters.
I know, but at least I've won it in recent years.
Well, I can say one thing. I can say one thing. I won't lose my voice watching you two guys. And Mark, let me give you a little bit of words of wisdom, okay? Eric is one of my best commentators on my network. And I say that because if you think you're going to win an argument with him, then if I were you, I'd go on your other 30 million podcasts and try, because my boy here knows his stuff. There aren't many people. Yeah, I think you have a vendetta against certain teams, and that's why you're boisterous on social media. But my kid here, and he is my adopted son, Eric Katz, Mark, okay? I know you don't see him a lot, but if you think you're going to beat him in a debate, my friend, good luck.
There's no.
Hold on, Mark. No, I have the floor.
Yeah,
okay?
You got the floor.
Okay, yeah, and I do have the floor, okay? My kid is a bright kid. I love my boy. He is my boy, and you're my brother from another mother, okay? We're tearing it up everywhere. We're probably tearing it up big time. And I have a front row seat to watch you and Eric and Greg and I just got to watch it. It's like a boxing match with you two guys, maybe a little generations apart.
Well, let me get ready with throw the left hook here. It's never been a vendetta. It's pure facts laid out that maybe some people in some cities can't handle.
Gosh, you sound like the Who's from Whoville, and Horton hears a Who screaming and yelling.
They're proven facts. You had just stipulated that says you got more money than me, and I said you're right. You got 3 times, maybe 5 times more money than Pittsburgh. But when you start breaking this thing across the board, how come the Jets and the Giants haven't won nothing, or the Knicks and Rangers? If you want to adopt New York here, I'll stick with my Pittsburgh franchise.
Well, I don't. We're not talking about hockey.
Okay,
we're not talking about basketball. You let me have the floor, Mark. You've been interrupting all night. You learn your manners. Let's lay this out, okay? Every team, when they go to the postseason, has a chance to win the whole thing. As as Greg pointed out, as you said, Greg, that anything can happen. The floor is very even. The season's very even. It doesn't matter how dominant of a team you have. Every team has a chance to go and get it done. The Yankees, who go there just about every single year, have a chance to get it done. Even through last year's quote unquote off year. Have they got it done? No. Do I want them to get it done? Abso-freaking-lutely. But the fact of the matter is, they haven't got it done. And right now, as far as they go, and as far as other teams go, at least Scott's team, the Tigers, can say they've been there. Greg, I forget your team at the moment.
I am a long-suffering Orioles fan who has finally seen the light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, the Orioles probably will make some noise next year if you want to judge by what they did in the second half of the year. And they've also won. They've also something else Pittsburgh hasn't done is the Orioles
they
at
won
least
82
have
games this season, and they got the best farm system in baseball. So I am optimistic.
Yes,
for next year.
And they also, to keep in mind, they haven't had Grayson Rodriguez come up yet. That guy's going to be a stud. And Adley Rutschman looks like is probably going to become one of the best ever catchers to ever play. His team, at least, is going to make some noise. Your team looks like it's floating across the alley. Now let me be better. Put that hand down, because I know what it means at this point. You are just bitter toward big market teams because they happen to have success. You at this point, you guys get so mad. You guys just are so sick and tired of yelling at Dollar Bob because he's not gonna get you there. Although you do have O'Neal Cruz, who's looking like an absolute stud. Here's the deal: you are just bitter because the Yankees, as well as when the Orioles get around to it, and even the Tigers have at least had success in the postseason. Put your hand down.
Let me lay some facts
Let
down.
me finish. I'm not done yet.
Okay, how many times are you gonna finish?
I haven't. You keep asking. I'll keep taking longer.
Hey, by the way, Eric, before you say anything, Will Vogel's definitely a fan of yours. So if you're reading, he's so great.
I don't want to lose my train of thought here, Eric.
Well, you lost it a while ago.
Do you know the definition of insanity? Have you ever learned that word?
Well,
what's that word mean?
Rooting for the Pittsburgh Pirates is one thing.
Okay, wait a minute. Do you know the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and hoping for different results? And let me correct you on something here. Because a little misinformation on that. If you look up the baseball record books right now, the Tigers and the Angels have longer droughts of getting into the playoffs than the Pittsburgh Pirates. That's a proven fact. I'm only bringing facts to this equation here.
Well, right now, Mark, you're only talking 8 years, so I'm not going to.
You're just looking to find every excuse in the book because you're just bitter over the fact that the Yankees, although they haven't got it done, and how dare you for the generalization earlier that all I want is a division title. That's what
you were definitely sounding like that.
No, you did
because you said you have a chance.
Well, at least I do have a chance, and we made it to the ALCS. Although we got swept, the Yankees still at least have a shot at winning it, just like anybody else. Unlike your sorry franchise that happens to play in the not so glamorous part of Pennsylvania.
I don't know. They were great in the 70s.
Yeah, well, Mark, you know what? Hold on. You got to figure this thing out. You can say what you want to this kid, but he's not like some of your.
Well, I'm laying facts.
I am too, Mark. Here's the deal. You want to talk about the Tigers and the Angels having like 7 8 years out? Well, okay. Well, let me give you another fact that may be a little painful for you, Mark. Okay.
Yeah.
The Pirates lost 20 straight losing seasons. That's worse.
Yeah. Well, no,
okay.
they still made
Mark,
it in the playoffs.
now hold on, Mark. Okay. Now I have the floor, and Eric and Greg can kind of watch it a little bit. Now you got two old guys here. Of course, of course, Greg, you're kind of like our age too, but it's a different situation. But now you're dealing with me, okay? Not my boy, okay? You're dealing with me, okay? And here's the deal. You can sit here and defend the Pirates all you want. When I went to the Baseball Hall of Fame, there are certainly a lot of Pirates plaques in there, as they should be. They've been one of the oldest franchises on the planet, and they had some exceptional players in the past. But the reality is they built a brand new stadium, and they did it with the intent that they could convince their fan base they would spend money, and they've come up short in a lot of areas. But the reality is you don't need all the facts you need to have here. The Yankees, rightfully so, yes, network and all, are in the playoff picture every year. It is difficult to win the World Series. We all know that. After all, only one team does. Hey, for crying out loud, the Kansas City Royals won it recently, and they did it with limited resources. So while we talk about playoff droughts and how long they are, the Seattle Mariners' 21-year drought went away, and they didn't look that bad either. So it isn't how much money you have, it's how well you spend it. And that's what Eric is getting at. Bob Melvin left the Oakland A's to go to San Diego, and he did so with the intent he would have more resources, which is why the Padres had a great year. They were able to find an excellent veteran manager with an incredible track record, making a lot out of nothing in Oakland. Again, I'm certainly not. I like rolling with certain things, especially if there's a lot of passion involved, which is why I'm allowing this to go on, Mark. Yeah, I have a finger too. It kind of works. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. But the point of the matter is, Mark, okay, is I see where you're coming from, but baseball is one of those sports where you don't have a salary cap. Okay. Right. But you have the haves and the have-nots. Mm-hmm. So right now the Pirates have been have-nots for a long time. And Clint Hurdle, I believe, is probably the best manager they've had in a while. So, it's always good to see the Pirates have success. Don't get me wrong, because they're an older franchise with a wealth of tradition. And all you have to do is look at the Hall of Fame, look at the plaques. But in recent years, they've been awful. That's all. In fact, they've been so awful that every time they get a good player, they have to trade them away. Mm-hmm. And many people view them as a AAA team for the rest of MLB. That's just a hard, cold fact. So, Mark, if you want to put your finger up, go ahead. I'm anxious to see what you have to bring.
Well, let me tell you something. You follow baseball, Scott, right?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so let's look at the last 6-7 years. Okay. That division has been won by every one of those teams in that division. Show me another division in baseball that's been dominated with 4 or 5 teams every year. The Cardinals have won it. The Brewers have won it. The Reds have won it. The Cubs have won it. And the Pirates have had to battle.
All right.
That division
Mark,
has been the SEC.
Every blind squirrel finds an acorn. And
for 6 years?
Well, yeah, hold on, because the Pirates don't belong in that conversation anyway. So, but they don't, because of their futility over for a while. Now, the Cardinals are always good. The Brewers obviously have been solid. And then who else you got there? Okay, I'm just off the top of my head. You got
Brewers,
the Cubs,
Reds, Cardinals, Cubs.
Yeah, I don't know. Have the Reds won the division recently?
The Reds have won the division.
Not recently.
Not recently, they haven't.
If you go back to probably
you do know how to work Google, Mark, right? Okay. Find out when
every one of those teams in that division has been to the playoffs. Show me another division that's the last 5 years, every team has been to a playoff.
The AL East.
The Orioles haven't been there.
Yes, they have. 2000. They won the division in 2014, had a wild card.
I'm talking the last 5-6 years. They haven't won. All right.
But Mark, you know what though? We can play this division game all we want, and it doesn't make a lick of difference. The bottom line is you got a problem. You have a problem with the Dodgers and the Yankees, and you're all over social media. You're one person where you are strong at on Facebook. You're definitely the most boisterous, animated individual when it comes to those franchises. Let's face it, Mark. You know what? You have a free platform here, okay, Mark? And everybody respects your opinion. Why not? Everybody's got an opinion, so everybody's entitled to it. I don't care about how many division titles that they've won. How many world championships has that division won outside of the Cubs? I know the Cardinals are relevant. I know the Cardinals are. Pardon me?
You can't compare a team that's not getting inheritances from uncles and aunts every year to spend money like the Yankees and Dodgers. So how can you compare the Pirates? The Pirates don't have that money to spend because there's no salary cap.
Yeah. Well, it is tough for small market teams in baseball.
Well, yeah. I mean, the reality of the situation is you had a lockout that lingered for a while, and a lot of us thought that a lot of it would bridge the gap. Now, again, we're not going to get into that tonight because I still have a couple of topics I want to get to, but I feel we're on to something, so that's why I'm riding with it a little bit longer. And Mancini, I know it's never past your bedtime out in L.A. because this is a East Coast, Midwest show kind of thing, but the reality is, and we know your dinner can wait. If not, just go ahead and make a TV dinner. You'll be all right because you're on TV.
I got another 15 minutes to throw some more lumber on this.
Yeah, well, that's good enough. Don't worry. I'll make sure these other ones. But the problem is all of a sudden we have a fire-up show, and what came out of it was a boxing match. So, but that's okay. We cover all sports, including boxing. Round 1 of Eric versus Mark Mancini, and I've enjoyed every bit of it. How about the rest of you guys?
It was fun.
No, it has been fun. So, all right, the reality is, Mark, okay, we could sit here and talk about divisions, who's done what. It doesn't matter. The reality is you have the Houston Astros and the Philadelphia Phillies, which should be an interesting series for sure. It is. And I tell you right now, the Philadelphia Phillies, any other thing about our explosive topic about the Yankees and the Astros? We're not bringing any more Pittsburgh stuff. We got more stuff in Pittsburgh than I've had in ages since I did a broadcast on a remote. Or Eric, did you make your point? Mark, did you make your point?
Yeah, I'm good.
Everybody on point with
good?
the Astros and the Yankees? Okay, so Greg, I got to tell you, man, you've been the biggest darn trooper on the planet, so I'm sure you're probably enjoying the show, aren't you?
Well, I can't wait till next year. We're talking about those playoff bound Orioles.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's okay. I'll make sure you're on that. If you talk about it, we know you're not afraid to write about it, and I'll expect you to write a story on that. But that said, we'll talk about Philadelphia. And Mark, I got to tell you, you and Eric have been a blast. You know, I've had such a worn out weekend, and for me to end my Monday night with you and Eric on the show, to me, has just been absolutely tremendously fun. I've really enjoyed the banner you two have had. This will be one of the most memorable shows I've ever had in recent memory because of the back and forth between Mark and Eric. And I think Jacob Will said, I would love to see Mark and Jacob debate sometimes. And we're talking about Jacob. Jacob is another guy on our level. So we'll see what happens. But meanwhile, round one between Eric and Mark has been a classic. So with that said, the house money Philadelphia Phillies ousted the San Diego Padres. I know that was painful for you, Mark, because you were definitely pulling hard for the Padres.
Yeah.
But let's face reality. I saw the Phillies play a few times. And when you have a lineup like Hoskins, you have Schwarber, Harper. Keep going, Eric.
Harper. Let's see. You got Wheeler in there.
Yeah. Castellanos.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Eric.
Nick Castellanos. Oh, they have them. They got them. That team is built to bash, man.
Yeah, they are, aren't they?
I mean,
yeah.
Keep in mind though. Forget their record. That they were out without Harper for much of the year.
Yeah. Yeah, I
saw Alec Boehm, who's actually turned into a nice player. Also, pitching wise, Ranger Suarez is becoming something. Aaron Nola, Jose Alvarado has just come out of nowhere and become a shutdown reliever. And Zach Eflin, JT Realmuto, Nick Castellanos, and that team is loaded.
Let me tell you something.
What's that?
I have loved Bryce Harper ever since he came to the Washington Nationals.
Right.
And I was always the first guy that said, when half of people would stand there and tell me Mike Trout is better than Bryce Harper,
No.
I have never seen a guy play the game of baseball like Bryce Harper since Pete Rose.
Well, you know what? That's a great comparison, Mark. I like the Pete Rose, Bryce Harper, because of the way he runs in the wall. He hustles. He's an excellent hitter. Mark, I know that Eric is having a field day with you tonight, but but the reality is I love your comparison between Pete Rose and Bryce Harper. That to me is probably the first guy that would enter my mind for sure. I saw them play a lot this year.
I've seen Harper. I've seen Harper play. Harper is a stud. The game I was at against the Brewers, he actually hit a very long home run. I mean, he plays with a certain passion that you don't really see. Yeah, everybody could say he's cocky, he's arrogant, whatever, but the guy plays with a passion that you just don't see it anymore in ball players. You see the passion, but not to the degree that Harper does. Harper plays hard to the point where the guy just throws his body all over the field, which is part of the reason why he gets hurt.
Well, listen, when you have a lineup like Schwarber, Castellanos, and Harper, and the list goes on and on, Hoskins, they're good. The Phillies can hit the ball. And bear in mind, they finished, third in that division, right?
Yeah.
Third. Well, it goes back to what you guys have been saying all night.
Castellanos was hurt. Harper was hurt. They fired Joe Girardi. They fired Joe Girardi mid-year, which, to be truthful, I think Joe Girardi really was the problem for that team.
Well, it's pretty hard to debate you now. Look what's happened. So,
well, Rob Thompson's a player's coach, and Girardi was the type of manager that, he's the type of manager that's for teams that need a kick in the shorts, and obviously the players weren't too receptive for it. And I wanted to go back to about Dave Dombrowski. The guy is not going to build you a dynasty. He's going to get you. He's not going to get you a platinum album. He's going to get you a one-hit wonder.
What's wrong with that?
What's wrong with it? Well, he's given 4 cities world titles. What's wrong with that? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying the fact that when everything goes dry, and when just look at what happened in Boston, when everything goes dry, and same with Detroit, with where they are now, which is partially on Dombrowski. When everything goes dry, yeah, you have your championship, but man, the next 4 or 5 years are going to be long. I mean, just look at.
Well, he didn't win a world title with Detroit. They got to the World Series a couple of times.
They did, and they lost to St. Louis.
Yeah, they lost a couple of times, but Dave Dombrowski, what Eric Mark is saying, whether you think it's right or wrong, has nothing to do with it. He's a short-term kind of guy. He's not long-term. He really is. At least Boston let him go. Tigers. Well, I'm just saying, Mark, he's right. I mean, now with the Marlins was different because, that was a different animal.
He had no choice.
But I'm talking about recently. I don't know what his shelf life was in Boston. It wasn't that long. Detroit, he was there for a while, but then again, that was a mess anyhow when he inherited it. And of course, now he's with Philadelphia, and he actually came from Philadelphia because he was trying to put a franchise in Nashville, but he got the opportunity to go with the Phillies. So, but Joe Girardi will land again. I know that at some point there will be another. And Rob Thompson's done a good job. He's been able to keep these guys together. So, it goes back to the old theory: just get in the playoffs, anything can happen. How many? I mean, think about the Dodgers won 111 wins.
Yeah.
Franchise history. Where'd that get them? What about the Seattle Mariners? 116.
Yeah. They won 24 more games than the Phillies.
Hey, the Yankees definitely bounced Seattle real quick.
That's what I'm saying a long time ago, Scott. It doesn't mean nothing the regular season. All you got to do is get.
Yeah, Mark. I mean, you're not telling me anything I haven't heard before, Mark. The reality is, the only thing the regular season does really is get you home field advantage in the first round. But in this new playoff format, it didn't matter because baseball is used to playing series anyway, so it doesn't really make any difference. So it doesn't matter. But
the only thing is, the longer that series goes with the Phillies and Astros, it's going to favor the Astros because I don't know if Philly has a depth with pitching to keep up with those guys.
I don't know. Well, you know what, though? Greg, any thoughts? And then we'll go to predictions, and then Ancini can go ahead.
I think it's going to be a great series. Yeah. I like those teams of destiny, which the Phillies seem to be. But the Astros, they're hanging tough. They're a gritty team, and I like their pitching. I will go with Astros in 7.
Okay. All right, Mark, give me a prediction on this.
Well, I like the Phillies in 6, but if you're going to tell me to match the best-looking women on the teams, I'd have to go with Kate Upton and Justin Verlander over there. So I think Houston could pull a surprise and give Dusty Baker his first title, but I like the Phillies on this one in 6.
All right, Eric, go ahead.
I mean, yeah, it's going to be a great series regardless. I mean, both teams have clearly been through the ringer, and both teams really want it. I mean, Philadelphia just has had the ultimate Cinderella story, in all of Major League Baseball. But the question is, can their pitching hold up? As much as it pains me to admit this, with how hot that Houston has been, although Houston hasn't hit with runners in scoring position, they're still getting the big hit. Same with Philadelphia, but pitching wins championships. I got to go Astros in 6.
Oh, you're going Astros in 6.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to agree with you. I really do. I like the Astros in 6 as well.
They just have the better pitching, which we all know pitching wins championships.
Well, and in this case, I think having home field advantage will matter for the Astros. But remember one. But I'll make one other prediction. You're going to see a lot of runs because both of them are hitters' ballparks.
Right. I mean, the clock struck midnight on Cinderella, and she lost her slipper. This time, the clock's going to strike midnight, and Cinderella is not going to get her slipper back.
Well, the reality of the situation is, I've said it all along, that the Phillies are on house money. Nobody expected them to do anything. But boy, they look good along the way. I mean, wiped out the Cardinals 2 in a row, and then if that wasn't good enough, they worked their way past San Diego. I mean, let's not kid yourself, Mark. The Phillies, to me, why do you think Rob Thompson had the interim tag move? Because obviously
he got him to. I mean, if I got a team through a tumultuous first half of the year, it got them to the playoffs. If that manager guided him through that point, I too would remove his interim tag and I would sign him to a nice extension. I wouldn't be questioning his contract.
Well, that's true. It was a tumultuous first. I guess you and Mark can at least agree on that, anyways. I got to tell you, though, you know, just watching you two tonight, I mentioned earlier, it's been a whole lot of fun. I've never seen Mancini get jacked up like this, the way you went out there and gave it to him, Eric. So the fact that you got Mark really charged up, you got that noggin of his working a little bit. Eric, you know what you got to let Mancini know about the concrete dump. This is his first rodeo with it.
Oh, that was because like first show in, it was something about we were talking about something about the expos or whatever, and we know Olympic Stadium is Olympic Stadium's a dump, and of course I knew it was made of concrete, so I call it just a concrete dump because that's what it is. I'm surprised somebody hasn't. I'm surprised one of those concrete themed things that seems to fall hasn't fallen on somebody and killed them.
That was funny.
Well, I'll tell you, next week's Halloween Havoc, a little hell in the cell. We're going to bring some more lumber out of Pittsburgh into this thing. Going to be jacked up next Monday.
Why, you got somebody lined up for us to talk about?
I'm ready for the throwdown and the madness on Mondays or whatever next week. Is the same crew coming back next Monday? Halloween Havoc.
I don't know. I'll make that judgment. Before we go there, let me say this one more time. Subscribe to South Florida Tribune on our YouTube channel or visit www.southfloridatribune.com. And the advertise, call 954-304-4941. The audio portion of the show can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. As well, if you have difficulties finding it from the website, just go to youtube.com and hit the subscribe button for South Florida Tribune, and you'll have access to all our remote videos as well as these streams. Every now and then we have a stream that really stands above them all, and this one will be in my memory bank for a long time. Also, you can reach me at Tribune South of Wells. Special shout out to Candy Abling, who does a great job not only with her photos with the South Florida Tribune, but also posting the content up as well as the broadcast, and fills in substitute for me. She's just my MVP. I don't care about anything else. She, to me, is an MVP. And you guys have been a lot of fun tonight. So.
I love Greg, but I'm just going to remind Greg 71 and 79.
Now, whatever. Okay, Mark.
From forever ago.
Mark, you know what? I was waiting for you. I was waiting for you.
It's been 39 years since the Orioles won a World Series.
So with that said, Mark, I know it's past your bedtime, so why don't you let everybody know how they get a hold of themselves?
XM 203, Sirius 217, WWDB AM 860. I'll probably face a firing squad Thursday in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I'll put up with Sal, and then I'll wrap that show up and be a part of the one on Friday with you guys. Sports Talk Saturdays moved to this Friday, and a host of others, ones across the thing with Pirtle and all those guys. And unbelievable. But this is the show I really enjoy on Mondays, baby. You guys throwing Eric Katz, Greg Fuchs, you, me.
Yeah.
Bring it, man.
Yeah, well, I will say this before I turn it over to Greg and Eric to conclude this thing. I do enjoy working with you and Bruce Kessinger. That's a show that I have a really lot of fun. And I know that we're starting to build a good following there. So, you know, one of these days, if Bruce ever gets his camera situation, we'll bring him on here. But if he doesn't, at least I look forward to seeing him once a week anyhow, unless something comes up, and that's very rare. So with that said, Greg, why don't you let everybody know how they get a hold of you?
Yeah, you get my articles on the southfloridatribune.com. You can follow me on Twitter at GFuchs, at Gregory Fuchs. And one final thought. I'm calling out South Florida football fans. They should be embarrassed as hell. The Canes game on Saturday, that stadium might have been half full. And then last night, as Mark mentioned, that was probably 50% Steeler fans in the stadium. The week before, because I was there, was about 1/3 Vikings fans. Now, the Dolphins, for the first time in forever, have a waiting list for season ticket holders. So how the hell are all these fans getting tickets to Dolphins games? Dolphins fans, if you're a season ticket holder, don't sell those tickets. Show up at the games.
You know, I got to go back to the chat room, Will Vogel. Yeah, Jacob Christner would give Mancini a run for your money. I know that. And, of course, the partnership with Sideline and South Florida Tribune is great. So, yeah, you never know. I mean, now that I see what Eric has done to markets, certainly intrigues me. It gets my wheels turned. All right, Eric, wrap it up. Let everybody know how they get a hold of you.
You can follow me on Twitter at Sports Team News, where I talk about everything and anything New York Yankees, but with the hot still gearing up. And you can subscribe to my work on bellyupsports.com.
And he does a great job. I love Mark. I know this is your first rodeo with Eric, but I love this kid. He does an unbelievable job, and his knowledge is off the charts. As soon as I met him,
I love him, man. I just got to
yeah,
get the
Mark.
he looks like a little Kent Kovey
What
look.
little you know about Twitter, Mark, because you're not as big on it as you are Facebook. I found Eric on Twitter, and once I got him on the phone first time, I knew he was a fit for what we're doing. And boy, he certainly has made me look like a genius. With that said, okay, I really enjoyed this episode of Fire Up, because we definitely were fire up tonight. Greg Fuchs, outstanding job. Man Mancini, good to have you back after 9 o'clock. And of course, Eric Katz, you're my MVP and my boy all rolled into one. Mm-hmm. What can I say? I'm proud of my boy. So with that said, on behalf of Greg Fuchs, Madman Mancini, and Eric Katz, my name is Scott Morgan, Route the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Fire Up, and we will catch you the next time. Have a good night, everybody, and hope you enjoyed the boxing match we had between Madman Mancini and Eric Katz. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.